choice for Secretary of Defense. According to NBC News, leading members of the Senate Armed Services Committee only just received Hegseth's FBI background check late Friday. Democrats have publicly expressed concern over that delay and fear that report might not be thorough enough, particularly for a cabinet pick who's faced allegations of sexual assault and accusations of excessive drinking. Journalists Gretchen and Democratic strategist Julie Roginski join us now. They are both co-founders of Lift Our Voices, a nonprofit focused on combating sexual misconduct in the workplace.
Good morning to you both. Julie, I guess the question is, it's not just the sexual allegations and the drinking, it's the financial mismanagement, as we were just speaking with Jackie Alamany about, and some other things that may be in these reports. What do you want to hear from this hearing, should it get underway, with these questions and these background reports just kind of hanging in the air?
Well, that's right. Good to see you all. Thank you so much for having us this morning. I think the larger problem here is that senators don't have access to this FBI file, that it was given to the ranking member and the chair, but not necessarily disseminated to people on the committee who will be asking those questions. And so when you don't know which questions to ask, because you don't know what's necessarily in the background check, you don't know what to probe for, and you don't know what the details might be. And so this seems to me kind of a rush job where they're trying to shove Pete Hegseth through without vetting him properly. And as somebody who worked with Pete back at Fox and somebody who knew him back in the day, I can tell you that there are questions that need to be answered on behalf of the American people, not just about his behavior with women, not just about how he ran the organizations that he ran that have financial impropriety, but also his behavior since then. All of those questions deserve to have a fair hearing because he is up for a very important job that literally has life and death consequences for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, that is the point here. A very important job, frankly. I have said for a while that Pete Hegseth, we appreciate his service, but having served in the United States military is actually not the only qualification needed to be the Secretary of the Department of Defense. Like there's more there, but those are the bulk of his qualifications. Wall Street Journal is noting that there are many senators that have questions. Joni Ernst specifically has some questions for Pete Hegseth. This is an article that came out today. Ernst is a former Army National Guard commander and endured a torrent of criticism from prominent Trump supporters late last year after publicly raising specific issues she wanted Hegseth to address: the role of women in the military, sexual assault prevention, and auditing the Pentagon for waste and abuse. Her questions and eventual votes could be key to Hegseth's future, as well as her own. Gretchen, I think Joni Ernst is an important figure here. What do you think here?
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's the linchpin to this. But what's really troubling to me, and I think should be troubling to all women and men, quite honestly, is that this shouldn't just hang on the shoulders of female senators to be the ones that are actually going to ask the tough questions or actually raise the issues of sexual misconduct. We as a country should all be concerned about this. And I think what was disheartening to Julie and myself and many other people who work in this advocacy space was that before the end of the year, the questions seemed to be centering on the mismanagement, allegedly, of these nonprofits that he ran and the potential allegations about drinking, and the sexual misconduct allegations were sort of shoved to the side as if, oh, well, those are lower tier concerns. So, look, Joni Ernst is trying to thread the needle here. She put out statements towards the end of the year that, said she had had good meetings with him, but she was still taking it under consideration because she had the MAGA people coming after her in force. You also have some interesting people, though, that I think we should be paying close attention to, and that would be Senators Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, also Kevin Cramer of North Dakota. And somebody that nobody else is really talking about is a new senator-elect, senator from Utah, John Curtis, who was a Democrat but is now a Republican and has been on the record as saying that he does not believe that nominations coming from Trump nominees should automatically just be forced through just because the president-elect said that they should be. So I would be paying very close attention to how he feels about this as well.
Julie, my friend, you come from the political world. You understand the complexity of the equation that Republican senators are trying to work out for themselves. Gretchen just laid a lot of it out. With that understanding, with the understanding they don't have the full information, you're calling it a rush job, which I agree. What questions do you think Republican senators can ask with the information they have that illustrates to the general committee and to the general public the limitations of this nomination?
Well, I think the first thing they need to do is they need to sit with the woman who allegedly was raped by Pete Hegseth. We don't know what happened, but she does. And they should not force her to come forward. We all know what happens to women when they come forward in these kinds of situations. You only need to look at Christine Blasey Ford to see the death threats and the doxing and basically the ruination of career and life that happens when you speak truth to power. But there are senators who can have a private conversation with her if they're truly interested in getting to the bottom of what happened. And they don't need to parade her out in front of the cameras. But if they're truly interested in what happened, and I also will say that, you know, Pete Hegseth signed her to an NDA. Every single one of these senators, every single one, supported the legislation that Gretchen and I put forward called the Speak Out Act, which eradicates pre-dispute NDAs for sexual misconduct like this. And every single one of them gave wonderful statements and speeches about how this is forward for sexual assault survivors and how this is a new day for the Me Too movement. Well, if they truly believe what they voted for and they truly believe what they said, they should give this survivor the benefit of the doubt and have her come speak to them privately and just share her information with them. And armed with that information, they can then make a determination as to which kind of questions to ask Pete Hegseth at the hearing.
Gretchen, I want to pick up on a point that Julie was just making about what happens to women in this situation when they do want to speak that truth to power. What is it about the fact that even today, in the face of everything that we've seen, everything that we've learned, everything we've come to know from Anita Hill forward, but we can even go back further than that, I'm sure. Why is it that you still have men in power in the U.S. Senate representing half the country, women, in those seats, still looking at women as if they're lying when they bring? I mean, because what's the upside to a woman just to randomly say, "Oh yeah, Pete Hegseth or any other man raped me," and not think that there's going to be an investigation or inquiry about that? Why would anyone do that in such a high-profile situation, and why do we as a country still look at them like, "You lying"?
Yeah, well, we've come a long way. When you do the work that we do on a daily basis, my case at Fox News was already 8.5 years ago, but we've made tremendous strides since that time. Women are actually being believed. There are severe consequences for predators in our society. But Julie and I often say that even though we passed 2 bipartisan bills into law in 2022 in the most hyper-political time of our generation to eliminate silencing mechanisms that keep these women at bay with their stories never to be heard, even though we accomplished that, changing culture, we often say, is more difficult than even that. Passing laws is the first way to try to, for lack of a better term, force companies and other individuals into treating these courageous people who come forward in a better manner. But it takes time then for culture to catch up because it's so ingrained in us for some reason that when people have the courage to come forward, we look at them as pariahs and we don't believe them and we have to push them to the side. So much of this is resting on these senators and how they approach this and the message that they're sending to the rest of Americans, and especially to our young people, for whom we have hope that as they rise into the workplace in the new generation, that they will stop treating courageous people who come forward in the same manner that others have been treated in the past.
Hear, hear. Yeah. Gretchen Carlson, Julie Brodzinski, thank you both very, very much. Coming up, former CI Director John Brennan will weigh in on the confirmation process for Donald Trump's picks for key intelligence positions, and we continue